God bless you. Welcome to Growing in Grace. We're glad that you've joined us again today, and we're always glad to have you in our audience. We are grateful to God who has allowed us this opportunity to serve you, and we're looking forward to having a great conversation today. And we would like for you to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. As I said before, I would like for you, if you have topics that you would like to have us discuss, you can reach out to me. My number is 423-316-8011. If you have some topics that you would like to discuss with us, you can share those with me at 423-316-8011. We'd be glad to entertain those topics. We're glad today to have a special guest with us. And I'm first meeting you today, and we're looking forward to having a good conversation about abuse and mental illness. And this is Cassandra Alexandra Green.
Alexander Green, yes.
Alexander Green. And we're glad to have you with us today. And we're looking to glean some information from you concerning abuse and mental health or mental illness. And the correlation between abuse and mental illness.
Yes.
Because we do understand that some mental illness is not how do I say, congenital, or it doesn't come from birth. It comes from treatment and how sometimes people deal with certain treatment.
Absolutely.
And so we'll start the conversation out with you actually introducing yourself and giving a little of your background, and then we'll go into the topic for today.
Okay. My name is Cassandra Alexander Green. I am the founder of WOW Ministries, WOWW Ministries, Warriors of Worship and Warfare. And we say we specialize in domestic violence, human trafficking. We work with people in the sex traffic community. We work with mental health, people that are dealing with mental health issues. So we've been doing that for close to 40 years. 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And we do it through community awareness, and also God gave me to use media. So I do a show called Conversations with Cassandra. So we talk about all these different issues. I also do plays in which we talk about mental health, domestic violence, sex trafficking, human trafficking. So that was the way that God gave me in order to help people to better understand and bring awareness to all of these different issues.
I see. I see.
I'm certified with the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health.
Yes.
With doing counseling for mental health patients as well.
Very good, very good. And we're at a time where a lot of things are happening. And I say it like that, kind of vague. A lot of things are happening. And the reason why I said it vague like that is because they're happening. A lot of things are happening, but people aren't talking. And so, yes, there's this vagueness, and there's some things that people don't talk about. And it's swept under the rug. And actually, it needs to come to light because some of the illness is because people are in the dark with what's going on, and they keeping their problems hid, and they're not shedding the light on it. And the people that could help them don't know to help them because a lot of things are going on. Rather than addressing those things and calling those things out as they are and getting appropriate help.
Can we talk about just overall mental illness in our community, in the Black community?
Yes, yes. But before you do
Go ahead.
that, what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to define a couple of terms.
Okay.
Because sometimes we assume that abuse, mental illness, people just know what we're talking about. And I don't want to do that.
Okay.
I want to actually shed light on what we're really talking about. How do you define abuse?
Let's do. Okay, you're gonna start with abuse.
You can start as you please.
Can we start with mental health and mental illness, because
Yes, come
people
on.
get those two completely. When you say all of us have mental health
Yes.
issues or whatever.
Yes.
Because sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're sad, sometimes that's
Yes.
that deals with your mental health.
Yes.
Mental illness is a specific depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, all types of different, and we lump everything together.
Yes.
But mental health, we all experience mental health.
Yes.
That's whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
Yes.
But mental illness is something specific that you may need treatment for. It may take just counseling, but you got to be able to differentiate what's going on with the person. And abuse, is abuse is when someone is harming you, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual. Okay, all of those are ways. Financial. You have to recognize that all of those are parts of abuse when people are being harmed.
Yes, yes. And I can see what you mean by differentiating between mental health and mental illness,
Absolutely.
because everybody has a mind. and it has to,
Hopefully.
oh well.
I hope everybody got a mind. We hope.
Well, they say some people
We
done
hope
lost
everybody
it.
got. Yeah,
Some
that's
people done lost
awesome.
it. But the reality of it is, it's just like a body and your physical health or well-being. You would have to consider before treatment. You've got to diagnose what you got to work on, and without a diagnosis, you're all over the place, and you're not effective
Exactly.
in your treatment.
Exactly.
And so by knowing what you're dealing with, then you can know how to deal with what you're dealing with. And so it has to be defined
Absolutely.
or determined.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And so you define those terms. Now you were going to speak on our community.
Yes.
Because I understand that we do have a stigma, or we
There you go.
have it's
It's
taboo.
taboo. That's the
Speak
exact
of it.
word.
Speak of it. And that's why I started out by saying some things are going on. So, and that's why sometimes even when you talk to people, say, "How you doing?" They say, "Well," but see, they won't speak on it. They won't speak on it. So, can you speak to why our community, or how we
Yeah.
can maybe even begin to overcome
Yeah.
this thing, this unspeakable thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
You remember? Well, I'm old, so I'm almost 65. So
Okay.
so
Well, wait
so
a minute now. Old keep getting older
look,
now.
okay, but I'm
Or
old.
young,
I
or
like
young,
it.
young keeps getting older. I'll put it like that. Yeah.
So what happens is that I remember when I was younger, and there would be someone in the family that was mentally ill.
Yes.
Well, Johnny's a little touch now. He's a little special.
Uh-huh,
They would
uh-huh,
use terms,
uh-huh.
and to try to define, but they would not get the help that the person needed. It was
Yes.
like, you just know he's a little special. Don't pay him no attention.
Yeah.
But we did ourselves a disservice in doing that, because people made it into just that, taboo. And
Yes.
so if somebody was having issues or having struggles mentally, we would almost like shut them out. You understand what I'm saying? You don't talk about it, especially you don't talk about it outside the house.
Yes.
Or that's it. What stays here, what goes on here stays here. That type
Stays
of
in my
thing.
house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So we did ourselves a great disservice.
So even when you went to school, you didn't tell nobody.
Nope.
You better not be telling them
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
going on in my house.
exactly. And
And actually, you really need some help.
you need help, and that's when it becomes abusive.
Uh-huh.
When people are hurting and they can't even tell their parent that they're hurting, and even if the parent sees it, they don't address it. They act like, oh no, she'll be all right. He'll be all right. And they're not all right. And if you would check the statistics right now, mental health in the younger people, teens and young adults, is rampant. Unfortunately, it's rampant.
It's funny you say that. Um, yeah, I haven't checked the statistics. However, my wife works in the medical industry, and now she's beginning to work with behavioral health. And the reality is that in her job, overtime is just it's ongoing, and they're looking for help. is just looking for help, and she's got ongoing overtime,
Mm-hmm.
and I keep telling my wife, hey, wait a minute, you ain't got to do all
Oh,
that
like,
because
okay.
you tired.
Look, we need some time. Oh, yeah.
I
Okay,
need some of that
okay,
time.
okay.
But the thing is, they're busy.
They're busy.
They're busy, and the reason why they're busy is because there are a lot of people who need that type of help, and again, people are seeking that kind of help.
Yes.
So many are not seeking the help. So many are, and but people just don't know it.
Listen, I was working with the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health. I was working with a program called Bright, the Bright program. And they worked with young people I worked with young people from 12 to 30, right? With bipolar, schizophrenia. I mean, and so every caseworker was supposed to have no more than 15. That was should have been your max. For some reason, I became so attractive to them that I had 30 patients, 32 patients. And I literally almost did damage to myself.
Yes.
And I had to literally quit that job because it was too overwhelming. Because I don't know how to give a part of me when I'm just
Yeah.
sorry. That's me. That's on me. But I don't know how to give a little. So I'm like going. Oh, I'm out there in the middle of the night trying to reach patients, and I don't like calling them patients. Reaching families, and I'm
I
like,
understand.
I can't do this no more.
Because you didn't know how to turn
Look,
it off.
that's what
And it
I'm.
was impacting your life and your
Exactly,
home
and my
and
health.
your health
Yes,
because it wasn't compartmentalized. It
exactly,
was becoming part of you,
exactly.
and they overloaded you. And it was probably because you were good at what you were doing.
I
That's
had too
where
good.
that's what happens.
Yeah,
When you're good
yeah,
at what you do,
yeah.
I think one scripture says your gift makes room for
Room
you.
for you.
And,
Too
and,
much
and
room.
sometimes
Sometimes it,
you
sometimes be like, okay, I don't want that much room. Can you bring it down a little bit? Yeah.
so you didn't have room to
Oh
receive it.
man, I was working so many hours. I was like, I can't. And just one morning, I woke up and I was like, I, I can't. I can't. And I mean, I'm falling apart. I'm crying every day. I'm like, okay, no, you gotta stop. You just call him and tell him you can't do it anymore. And I ended up leaving that job, and I loved it.
Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
it became overwhelming because I took on so much, and then
Yes.
they kept loading more and more
Yes.
families, and it was it man when you have 13-year-olds that are suicidal, and you man,
Yeah. Yeah.
it takes a lot out of you because you don't want to be that person that says the wrong thing that
Yes.
can tip that person over
Yes.
into trying to kill themselves.
Yes. And so the issue becomes, okay, how do I say the right words at the right time? The right words at the right times. And so then you're being very careful and
Very careful.
particular, and your mind is working overtime to see the pieces ahead to make sure you don't make the wrong move.
And the Holy Spirit gives you, I mean, really, he gives me, I think that was the thing. He would give me just the right things to say to that particular person to help them keep moving. And people attract to that. They love that. And they would be calling me, Miss Cassandra, the dog ran away with the spoon or something. I don't know. So they would call me like for every little thing. It would be like, okay. But you have to make yourself available a lot of times, and I would overdo it.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but the abuse part, let me get back to that.
Come
The abuse part is so important because abuse causes depression, causes PTSD in people, and you have all of these factors that lead to the mental health issues. We got to remember that because when you are being, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual, sexual, those things affect your very psyche. Just think about that, and the more that you're affected in your mental health, it can turn into mental illness. And that's what we have to remember.
I
That's what we have.
see.
You have to remember that.
So sometimes a person, they've been fine. Then they started receiving a certain type of treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing you know, they're saying that they are bipolar.
Yes.
While all of the time before they were fine, but
Mm-hmm.
now, how do I say,
That
all of a sudden they're bipolar, but they don't make the correlation between
what has
what
gone on? Yes.
changed,
What
what
changed?
changed,
Exactly.
what changed.
Exactly.
Did something change in your life
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
cause
Mm-hmm.
you to have that manifestation that you are bipolar?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I had a nephew that was killed. Uh, he was dealing with schizophrenia. Was killed by the police
Mm-hmm.
in Charleston, South Carolina. Made national news and international news,
Mm-hmm.
and he would always uh, feel like there was some type of uh, abuse, some type of attack on him,
Mm-hmm.
right? And which was a part. And he was so smart. He was like, we got to pay attention because sometimes when people are extremely intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
you come on now, y'all know how many geniuses had mental health issues?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You would be shocked at
Mm-hmm.
how many geniuses have mental health issues, serious mental health issues. And sometimes it came from them abusing them own selves.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
can abuse your own self
Yes.
and cause mental health
Mm-hmm.
or mental illness.
Yes.
Yeah, and people don't realize that. So I'm very careful about when it comes to abuse. Physical abuse is bad,
Mm-hmm.
horrible.
Yes.
But mental abuse,
Mm-hmm.
that will send a person into mental illness very quickly.
Yeah. Because I can see how a person can receive some physical abuse, but as long as you have a strong mind, you can actually
You
overcome
can,
that. Not that it's acceptable, but
mm-hmm,
you can overcome it
mm-hmm,
better which, if you have a strong
mm-hmm,
mind.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
when your mind is being attacked,
Exactly.
then that's a whole different thing.
And your spirit,
Yes.
because I was in an abusive marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when it wasn't physical at first, it
Mm-hmm.
was mental.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, ain't nobody else gonna want you.
Mm-hmm.
Woo, 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 woo. And the more you hear that,
Uh-huh.
Pastor, the more you hear somebody speaking that into your spirit over and over again, you ain't no good. Ain't nobody care nothing about you. Your family don't care about you.
I'm
Woo, woo,
all you
woo.
got.
I'm here. I'm the one. You.
Uh-huh.
So that person almost, and this is what happens with a lot of women and men in domestic violence. That person becomes like your savior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't want to ever make anybody your savior,
Mm-hmm.
but the savior.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
But when you're constantly hearing negative things about yourself, you're ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't no other man gonna want you, so you might as well stay here.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets implanted in your spirit,
Yes.
which affect your mental,
Mm-hmm.
which will take you into mental illness.
Yes. Yes.
So we gotta really protect ourselves mentally, and okay. Y'all might have heard about this. This
Mm-hmm.
happened about 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
5-year little girl was behavior problem, right? Acting out. And so the church that she was in
Mm-hmm.
said that she was demon possessed. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And they were trying to beat it out of her,
Physically.
physically beat it,
Uh-huh.
physically beat her, and doing all of the making her do confessions and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
and they ended up killing her.
Don't you
5 years
say?
old. This was
Wow.
2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And so, and that's another thing. We sometimes we have to differentiate between demonic possession
Yes, yes.
and mental illness, Pastor. Those are two
Yes.
totally different
They are two
things.
totally different things. And that's where sometimes we need to talk about a little more amongst the people who are believers,
Exactly.
in that it's strange that we can believe God for medicine for our pancreas,
Mm-hmm.
for our blood pressure,
Mm-hmm.
for different for our arthritis
Mm-hmm.
and different other parts of our bodies.
Body. Mm-hmm.
But then when it comes down to the
Mind.
mind, we can't believe that that particular organ could need a
Help.
rebalancing.
Yes,
Or
yes,
rebalancing
yes,
because
exactly.
there's some medicine that can help with a chemical imbalance that
Exactly.
you may have in your mind.
Thank you.
And so we,
Thank
we,
you.
we have a situation with our pancreas
Thank you.
where it's not producing the insulin. But you
Mm-hmm.
may have a situation with your mind
Mm-hmm.
that's not producing the chemical that it should produce, and you need some help
Absolutely.
for that.
Absolutely. Pastor, I'm so grateful to hear you say that because there are people, religious people, that do not believe that. They do not understand that. They feel like you're either demon possessed or you're just crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, but there are things, and this is why I try to tell people it's okay to seek out help. Everything is not going to be medication when it comes to mental illness.
Yes.
Everything is not medication. You may just need therapy. You may need to talk
Talk
through
through. Yes.
whatever is going on with you. And as you talk through that thing, your healing begins to develop. And that's why Christian counseling, I think, is so important.
Yeah.
You understand?
I do.
But this is what I love about a lot of spiritual people now. I see that a lot of people are realizing that, okay, if I can't help you with the counseling, it's okay for me to send you to a doctor because it may be a chemical imbalance.
And here's the thing. Jesus
Yeah.
himself, when
Mm-hmm.
he was here, he said this. He said, they that are whole need not a physician.
Okay.
Okay, now here's another thing.
Okay.
He healed blind people,
Okay.
and he healed them differently.
Mm-hmm.
One, he would speak a word,
Mm-hmm.
and they
And
went away seeing.
that's it.
Another, he made a medicine,
Okay.
and he anointed the man's
He
eyes.
took that spittle. I don't want him to spit. I don't want that part now for real. Now.
No,
I
but
don't even know if I want to like
yes,
don't Jesus don't spit on the ground. Don't
no,
don't make the
you
I'm
gotta
just
believe
kidding. Look,
God.
look,
You
look,
gotta
look,
believe God,
exactly.
and that's what some people they try to make too
Exactly.
much
Too
sense
much.
out of
Yeah,
God,
yeah, yeah.
and they wouldn't
He
receive their
takes the
healing,
foolish things to
and
confound the
he
wise.
confounded the wise.
Yes.
So he used spit,
Spit,
and
yeah.
he anointed that
It's
man's
okay. I'm
eyes.
just kidding.
And
Yeah.
and here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. I believe there was one situation where he checked on him, almost like a physician. He said, "How do you see?" He said, "I see men like
Men.
trees."
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
he did it again.
Uh-huh.
Don't you see? And then he said, "Well, how do you see now?" I see men as men.
I see
I
him.
see right
I
now.
clear.
You
Yeah.
see, and so it's not that he never used anything physical.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to say is that
Mm-hmm.
yes, he did some things just with his word, but then he did
Absolutely.
some things with physical
Actions.
things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even
Mm-hmm.
the woman the
Mm-hmm.
daughter that was dead,
That. Mm-hmm.
he came and raised.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was about 12 years
Yeah.
old.
Dorcas, right? What was her name?
No,
Dorcas?
that
Was
wasn't
that not
Dorcas.
Dorcas?
That was the man whose
Yeah.
daughter was dead,
Dead. Okay. Yeah.
and he just said she sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and they laughed him to scorn, and he had to put
Mm-hmm.
him out because they didn't
Mm-hmm. You
believe.
ain't believe. Mm-hmm.
And once he raised her up, though, you know what he said? Okay, now give her something to eat.
Give us something to eat.
See, and sometimes we just think spiritual, and we don't think that there's a physical component to the whole man. Because we are actually, it's all of us, we're all connected, soul, body, and
And
spirit.
spirit.
So,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So that was good. Go
Uh-huh.
ahead, Pastor. But yeah, so when I deal with people
Yes.
that are in abusive situations, if I don't counsel them, I always make sure that I refer them. Either you need to go to your pastor, you need to go to a counselor outside. You need to find somebody that you can connect with to discuss that because man, let me tell you something. As strong as I am, when I was going through physical and mental abuse in my marriage, I was a mess. And I consider myself extremely strong. I was a mess, Pastor. I I didn't want anybody to know. Come on
Yes,
now.
yeah, yeah.
See that
Uh-huh.
secret? Here we go again. We
Uh-huh.
gonna keep it under the rug and keep it in the dark. I didn't want anybody to know because everybody looked at me as this leader, and oh my God, it's no way. Who? What? You do you hear her preach? How in the world could she possibly be in an abusive relationship? And I was, and I was quiet about it. I was ashamed. That's another thing. a lot of shame
Like some
comes
of it
with
was
that.
your fault.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. And so there's a shame that you come under, and you like, man, I can't let nobody know. Do you know how many professional women I talk to? I'm talking. Some of these girls are millionaires and are in abusive situations. Got everything that you could possibly, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That look is like, oh, she got it all together. Man, she be sharp all the time. Look at her car. You know, she got that big, beautiful house, but she's getting her. I do this play, right? I wrote this
Mm-hmm.
play
Mm-hmm.
called But He Loves Me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have all of these different women that have different scenarios, like a corporate woman,
Mm-hmm.
a white woman that just stays at home, and her husband is this big exec, and but he's beating her when he comes home because of his frustration from his job.
Mm-hmm.
But she can't let anybody know because she's living La Vida Loca. You know,
Mm-hmm.
she's living large. So, but every woman, I had like 12, 13 different scenarios. Every woman said at the end, with whatever she was going through, but I love him. But I love him.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I got the black eye, my
Mm-hmm.
teeth were knocked out, whatever, but I love him. He makes me feel like I'm nothing and no one. That's all abuse. But I love him. That's the sad part.
So let me ask you a question. Um, you're a counselor
Hmm.
in this arena, and you have a powerful ability to counsel because you come from it.
I've been there.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. You know,
Hmm.
you're not just somebody who's talking about
Mm-mm.
something. You're somebody who had to overcome.
I have to overcome it.
So, can you speak on, as a strong person, before it started, you were strong. How did that start, and how did you allow it, and then how did you overcome it?
Yeah, yeah. And that's you used a key word. I allowed it
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like my ex-husband was the love of my life, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to lose him. I didn't care how bad it got. I kept saying, "Okay, it's gonna get better. Just you got to be a better wife. Don't push his buttons. Don't, And I kept putting it on
All on
me,
you,
and a
right?
lot of women do that.
Uh-huh.
They keep putting it on them,
Mm-hmm.
even though, yeah, and even men that are in domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
men, mainly theirs is emotional.
Uh-huh.
Them being emotionally abused, and
Yes.
some I've dealt with that were physical abuse, and they didn't want to put their hands on her, but she kept putting her hand on him,
Uh-huh.
but he didn't want to put his hand. So now his is mental and physical.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was subtle because I was so in love with him that I was like, he'd say something like, "Oh, where you going? Why you took so long? Why you always at the church?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Why you need to be home more, whatever." And so he made me feel bad even about the things that I did for God.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It, it don't care.
So you're saying that it started out real subtle.
Real subtle.
Real subtle.
Real subtle.
It's almost like you're just kind of cranking it
A
up
little
just
bit,
little by
little bit.
little, little,
Mm-hmm.
and you allowed little by
Little
little
by
by
little.
little
Mm-hmm.
until you got to this bad place, and
Yeah.
wondering, okay, how did
How
I
did I
get
get here?
here? Uh
Exactly.
huh.
And that's, I think a lot of women ask themselves, and men, how in the world did I get in this situation? I'm smart.
Mm-hmm.
I work hard. I have good work ethics. I got money in the bank. How would I get to the place where I'm allowing someone to totally control me till now I feel like I have no control? I was at a place where I had no self esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Not low,
Uh huh.
no.
I see.
Because once you can have someone that supposedly loves you bring you down and make you feel so small, you lose all of you. You
Mm-hmm.
totally lose you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about, what do I do not to trigger him? What do I, okay, how do, what, and it will mess you up. And that's how, that's the place that I got to. And I think my final thing was, he punched me one day. I wanted to separate for a while. I said, well, maybe if we just separate, and you never, please guys, please listen to me. If they don't hear nothing else I say, you never tell your abuser that you're going to leave. I don't. People can talk about, well, y'all just need to sit down. No, you bet not. Most women are seriously hurt or killed when they tell that abuser, I want to leave. And you're not being mean about it. You're just saying, hey, maybe we need to separate. That's what I told him. The night before, I said, hey, maybe we just need to separate for a while so that you can figure out, what it is that you want to do. That next morning, I get up to go to work, and I'm dressed, and I'm going down the steps, and I hear him come out of the bedroom. So I turned around and I just smiled, hey, good morning. And I'm walking down the steps, and I feel his hand on my shoulder. So I turned around, and it was, and I hit the wall, and I was passing out. And so I'm like, what in the world? I'm, like trying to figure out what just happened. And I'm trying to get myself up from the wall, and boom, he hit me so hard. My head busted open. Blood is going everywhere. And I'm still trying to figure out what is happening. I literally could not believe that I was being hit, you know? And so he never said a word. He just did the hit. And then my stepson, who I don't even know how he got into my house to this day. I don't know how he got into my house that day. All of a sudden, he was in, my ex-husband was like 6'2", 250 solid weight. His son was about 300 pounds, about 6'4". He literally lifted his father up to keep him from hitting me that next time. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me as that child grabbed him. He said, if he hits you again, he's going to kill you. If he hits you again, he's going to kill you. And my stepson came right in at that time and grabbed him up and took him out of the house.
I see.
And that was like that curve for me. Like, it's something really seriously wrong here. Because this man is trying to kill me. The enemy is trying to use him to kill me. And you have to identify that. And then you make up your mind. I left 3 times before I finally made that final move. Most women, on average, 6 to 7 times before they finally walk away.
Wow.
6 to 7 times. They'll keep coming back.
Okay. So
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
so I need you to speak on that just a little bit. What's causing them to come back? Now, in your situation, that was it, right? When
No,
they
I
hit-
stayed with him. I stayed
You
with him
stayed a
longer.
little longer
Oh,
after that?
yes, Lord. Yes, I did.
Okay, so you
Auntie.
come on, you
Oh,
got
yeah,
you
yeah.
got to
I
talk
stayed
to
with
us a
him.
little bit.
So
What's driving that?
yeah, yeah.
What's driving that?
For me, it was my love for him.
Yes.
I had intense love for my ex-husband. I just felt like he was the one. And God, you're going to fix him. You understand? But God ain't fixing nobody that don't want to be fixed. That's what we got to realize. They have to want to be fixed. And God can fix it.
Absolutely.
But it has to be that person's will. God is not going to go against their personal will. So while I'm on the floor, I'm praying in tongues, I'm fasting, I'm doing everything, that I feel I need to do. But he wasn't
yeah.
ready. He didn't want to do it. So yeah, that was huge for me.
Yeah, yeah. And so what finally did it for you? You said, well, you know what, this is it.
Well, he did it.
Oh, he did it.
Yeah, he did it. He got on drugs. He had a woman and all this stuff, and he told me, this is the crazy thing. God reminded me of this. He had told me several years into our marriage. He said, if it ever gets to a place where I hurt your ministry, I want you to walk away. What would you do to hurt my ministry? He said, you are called by God, called and chosen. He said, if I ever start interfering with that, I want you to walk away. I was not strong enough to walk away because of my love for him. So he walked away. He walked away. And I honored him for that, actually. I really did. I was like, wow. I felt like he loved me.
So do you feel like you would not have walked away.
No, I wouldn't have walked away. No, I wouldn't. I'm just being. See, I
Yeah,
believe in
and
being.
I
You
do.
got to be
I would rather a person
be
be honest.
transparent.
Yeah,
I'm very
than that.
transparent. No, I
Yes,
wouldn't.
yes.
No, I
So
probably would have been there, still
yeah,
there.
and so I see some women who are stuck now,
Yes.
and what's the hope?
Yeah.
What's the hope? Because really, my main ministry is about giving people hope for something better. That's what Jesus come to bring, not to condemn, but to bring life. So how do we bring them to a better life
See,
and pull
because
them out of that
yes,
misery
yes.
at where they're continuously spiraling, and even some say they have these different mental illnesses, but they only have them when they're in certain circumstances. So couldn't it be a situation where their mental illness is situational?
It is situational.
And if they got out of the situation,
Situation,
they
exactly.
actually could be
Be
whole
better. There.
in their minds
Yes,
and
yes,
overall
yes,
if they could leave that abusive
yes,
situation.
yeah. Now, let me just tell you, for me, even though I said I might still be with him, I think I would have walked away. But I really think, yeah, I really think I would have walked away. So like I
You
said,
just
I
didn't
left
see it
like
in the
three. I
purpose.
couldn't see it
Yes.
right then.
Uh-huh.
You understand, because
Uh-huh.
of my strong love for him.
Yes.
But I believe at some point I would have walked. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like I said, 6 to 7 times for the average woman
I
before
see.
she found. So I was on number three.
I see. So you had about
Look, I
three, four
had
more
three,
times.
4 more times before I actually got it. And I think I would have gotten it. I think I would have gotten it. I want to hope. Look,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
wait.
Yeah, we talking about hope, right?
Okay, I
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
I would
If
have
you
gotten
would have
it.
lived.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
I would.
See, and
See?
that's the problem.
Yeah,
That's
see?
the problem. It's some big ifs here now.
Okay.
It is some big ifs
It's
here.
a big if.
And I do not teach people to divorce. I don't believe in that. I use scriptures and all, and I don't teach that. However, it's not really a however, like I'm transitioning to something else, or putting a but in there. With that same teaching, there is teaching that says that let not the wife depart from her husband. It says, but and if she depart, let her remain unmarried. And here's the thing that I would say about that is, if you're in an abusive relationship, there is a door.
There's a door.
There is a door, and you can walk out of it. You don't have to stay in an abusive situation, man or woman, man or woman, man or woman. And if they please to dwell with him, let them not leave. Well, you ain't pleased if you hitting me.
If you
Some
whipping me,
you
yeah,
say you
yeah, yeah.
please,
Yeah, yeah.
but your fist of
Hey,
fury is
it's
saying
saying
something
something.
different.
Yeah, yeah.
Or even
Unfortunately,
that sharp.
sharp mouth,
Yes,
sharp tongue.
that cutting
Yeah,
that you're doing with
yeah,
that
yeah.
tongue,
Tongue.
and you're cutting my.
And women are
Yeah,
bad about that. And
yeah.
I always women get mad at me sometimes because I'll be like, you know what, y'all some dangerous, y'all some razor sharp women in your relationships, and you need to stop it. So I'll get on a woman just as fast as when she's like that type that like, and you,
Yeah.
okay,
Clamorous, loud,
woo. I'm loud, but
stubborn.
I ain't. Look. I loud, but I ain't loud like that. But it's just you have to watch. Each person has to watch what they say to the other one, male or female,
Yeah.
because some words are so damaging. I mean, I'm serious, and I have in my 30 something years of doing domestic violence, I've actually buried 6 women, I think it is. Six or 7 women, maybe 6 women, that I was trying to talk to and let her make up her mind to leave, and they would just determine, oh, he's not gonna, that's the one that I hear the most. He's not going to hurt me. He's not going to hurt me. And those were the very ones that they end up being killed. One was a young girl. She was 37, had 2 children, great job. And he'd been cheating. And she decided that day to confront him and say she was leaving. That kid went in his room, got his gun, shot her 3 times, came in the hallway in front of their two children and killed himself.
Wow. And the reality of it is, here's the thing that somebody may not think about. And see, sometimes that person that's receiving the abuse think that it's their fault, and they begin to have no esteem, no self-esteem, and they've come so low in their own thinking, and they're beginning to have these episodes and bipolar and other type of depressions and things of that nature, and they think that they have the mental illness, which they actually may be
Something, yeah.
from somebody else. And what I'm saying about that is the abuser oftentimes has a mental illness.
Yeah, him or her. Yeah, they have a mental.
They may have a mental illness, but it's their illness is affecting you because they are abusing you, and they're doing that because they're not well.
They're not well. And just think about it. If you are physically, emotionally abusing, using your mouth or your fist to harm somebody, that is not normal behavior.
Yes.
So there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, and they just be trying to say it's you
the one.
But it's something in them that's not right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So we gotta remember that. And people don't want to. Who wants to recognize that there's something wrong with them?
Right.
I don't mind saying it's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. But who wants to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I got a problem. I need to go get some help. And that is the hardest thing for people to admit and to go get help. And that's why the abuse sometimes turns to death, mental illness, and then turns to death for some people.
Yes. So what are some strategies for overcoming?
Okay, just as a Christian, I always tell people, seek God. I think a lot of times let me see how to put it. We have this way of, I don't want to bother God with this. I don't know whether that's how we say it, but you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you bother God? Who's omnipotent, omnipresent, all of that good stuff. How do you? But you really don't want to get. It's like, God, I have to figure this out. But God is your first step. That should be your first move toward healing.
Yes.
Toward deliverance.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I always tell people, if whatever, and then it doesn't have to be the God that I serve. Let me make that plain, because I deal with people that are Muslims.
Have different faiths.
You understand what I'm saying? So whatever your faith is, that is your biggest way of being able to exit that thing. Because whether it's a mental illness or not, your faith leader should be able to help you figure that out through counseling or whatever, and then you can determine where to go from there. But faith is always my biggest tool. Counseling, some type of counseling, is always my second thing that I tell people. Because even if you are seeing, you turn to your faith, that counseling will help you work through in your head what is happening to you. You gotta
kind of make sense out of it and rationalize it so you can understand, not altogether accept it to say that you're accepting of this type of behavior, but at least you can understand and process.
Exactly.
And process what has happened, what has gotten you here, and through that process, you might begin to see a way out of it.
Exactly. But that counseling is essential because then you're not holding. That's what causes the mental illness.
Yes.
When you're just holding everything in and you're not, allowing yourself to talk to anybody. You ain't talking to your friends because you don't want people to know. You're not talking to your family because you don't want your family to know.
Yeah.
So you're bottling up all of that pain, all of that anxiety. And this is how a lot of people that are in domestic violence and abusive situations, that's how they end up with PTSD, especially PTSD. That post-traumatic stress ain't nobody's joke. Because I had to realize that I was going through that after my relationship. Because I was scared. like to talk like I ain't talking to no man.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm scared he's gonna do something to trigger me. You know
Uh-huh.
what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And we gotta learn all those things. You gotta learn
Mm-hmm.
because there are triggers for you when you've been through.
Uh-huh.
You know, can you? I
So
tell you,
it's
Pastor,
after the situation. Now you're having the residual
guilt.
of that. You're
That's
having the
where
residual of
that's
that.
where the depression and all
Uh-huh.
these other illnesses can come into play
Mm-hmm.
because now you're trying to fix your head
Mm-hmm.
over what has taken place, and how could you be so stupid? How could I let him do that to me? And that even by itself
Yeah.
is a problem.
Yes. And then you got that guilt
Guilt.
of yourself
Yes.
allowing.
And
And here's the
exactly.
thing that's maybe makes this kind of related.
Mhm.
Uh, in you said faith,
Mhm.
you say therapy,
Mhm. Mhm.
and you're kind of talking through these
Mhm.
things. But here's the thing: the faith is not just what's in the book. So a person sometimes they'll read or what have you, pray and read.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I think sometimes people miss some things
Mhm.
because the Bible says that faith comes by hearing,
Hearing. Mhm.
hearing the word of God,
Mhm.
and it didn't say it comes by reading. It says by hearing.
Hearing.
And I think that you need to hear something. And you need to hear the word of the Lord.
Mhm.
You need to hear the word of God.
Mhm.
And some talk has to be done.
Mhm.
There has to be some communication.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and and so I could see how the therapy is going to help. And then you've got to have some faith
Yes.
and you've got to hear something
Yes.
that's can perhaps change your thinking
Yes.
because the thinking has been messed up.
Messed
And
up.
now you need something to change that thinking, and you really need a renewing of your mind.
Absolutely.
And your mind need to be reprogrammed.
Absolutely. Let me I had a young lady that was being sex trafficked, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
This was several years ago. Just last week,
mm-hmm,
she found me, she reached out to me, and she wanted to share how grateful she was that I stuck with her and, kept working with her until she finally ran away from the person, her abuser.
mm-hmm,
But it caused her she went into severe depression. She had to, end up getting on medications because the abuse was so. Think about it. This person had you selling your body all around the country. He literally, yeah, yeah, sex trafficking, human trafficking ain't no joke. So he would move her all around the country to work. And she was so damaged by that she started dealing with bipolar, and then she was diagnosed with something else. But she ended up on medication because that amount of abuse. Just think about it, because not only is he's mentally abusing you, but
uh-huh.
he's allowing other people to physically abuse you, and he's beating you when you don't do what you understand what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
So that's a lot of stuff for any one person
Mm-hmm,
to take mentally.
mm-hmm,
You understand? So she was like, I'm doing good. I'm in counseling. I'm on medication, but I'm doing okay. You know,
and that's the residual of all of that.
all of that
She ended
abuse.
up on medication.
Yes.
Let me ask you a
Mhm.
question. Can a person uh, go through that,
Mhm.
need medication,
Mhm.
and come to a place where they're okay without it?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Have you
You.
seen it? You seen
Yeah.
some
Oh.
cases
I've
of it?
seen. I've seen
Mm-hmm.
several cases where people were
Mm-hmm.
able to. They were on meds for a while because they needed to stabilize. They needed.
Uh-huh.
You understand?
Uh-huh.
They
I
needed, like when you
understand.
talk about. They needed
Yeah.
to stabilize their minds. They needed to stabilize their lives. And once they got to that place, they were able to get off of the medication. And I'm blessed for this reason. I never, with all that I went through, I never had to get on medication.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was a few times that I said, "Okay, I can't do this, God." And God said, "Yes, you can. I'm going to heal you from this.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to have to go on any medication. I'm going to heal you." But I had people that I did talk to. I
Mm-hmm.
had people, people that were counselors, and even my bishop out of South Carolina. He would be calling me. He'd be
Uh-huh.
like, "Okay, what's going on?" I mean, he just knew. I love it.
Uh-huh.
I love bishops like that. I love
Uh-huh.
men of God like that. He would call me and say, "Okay, what's going on?" He said, because I'm sitting here watching my TV, minding my own business. God tell me to call you. You know, so it'd be like,
So why I'm
and
calling you?
and I'd be like, I'm okay. And he's like, Cassandra, what is going on? And I just bust out crying and start spilling it. So even when we have people on the spiritual level that can see, and they should see, you know what I'm saying? They don't see all the time, but if you are a leader, we should sense when something is going on with the people around us. You know what I'm saying? And God will straight up speak to you and say, call her right now. And that's what he would do with my bishop. He just, and when I was at my lowest point, he would just call me and say, hey, what's up? That was a blessing. That was a blessing. So I think the spirit. I love the spiritual part when people are healed. When God just for me, God just came in and did His thing. You know, He was like, I got you. And then I'm gonna say this. Please don't take this wrong. He told me, I was praying one night. This is before my husband and I got the divorce. He said, I was prostrate on the floor. He said, I will give men's lives for you. I said, what? I said, no, God. He said, I will give men's lives for you. And it scared me because now I know you're talking about my husband. I don't want my husband to die. And I'm like, God, please don't take him, God. You know, just being me. And so God said, the vengeance is mine. I will repay. All of this stuff. Now, I'm not even I'm thinking I want you to heal him so we can be together. And God is telling me something totally different than what I'm praying. And how about when we divorced, he ended up dying shortly after that.
Oh, so he did pass away. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't.
Shortly after that. Shortly after that. And God said, I told you, I don't care. I,
Well, and
but,
that well now, but that is a truth. That's a truth. It's a truth that uh, vengeance belongs to God. In fact, I actually, our time is getting a little short, but I really would like to talk about, um, because we're talking about abuse and we're talking about mental illness that pretty much stems from abuse. Um, how does forgiveness factor in
oh,
to your healing?
oh, I'm glad you mentioned
You
that.
know, because really sometimes people don't, I perceive that sometimes people don't heal because they don't forgive and they hold the grudge when actually the abuse is over and it's time to be over with it. But you're holding on to what they did, what you did, and your guilt when actually it's time to move to the next chapter and you're holding on to the previous chapter and you're grudging and all of that. That could really play a negative factor on your mental.
That is the reason why a lot of people just think unforgiveness. It's like a cancer. You know, it can be a cancer both mentally and physically. So forgiveness was something. Okay, I was abused from 4 to 12 by sexually abused by my grandmother's boyfriend, and so uh, I hated him. When I tell you I hated him, and he was a preacher. So I really hated him. I hated everything about God. I didn't want I was like, I wish God would say something. You know, like you I was that angry at God. It's like, what you doing with this man, you know, as a preacher and he's touching, touching me and woo woo. And from 4 to 12, he touched me. So I had a great hatred for him. And when he died, um, my grandmother was like, why are you so cold? Because I never told her. I was afraid of her. So I never told her. She never knew. And she beat me because I would not cry over him, over his death. She beat me. She's like, you are cold, so and so, whoa, 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 whoa. And I, of course, I just took the beating. I was 38 years old before I actually told her that that man had abused me. And what I had to start first with, Pastor, was I had to forgive him. Because I say, I wish I would.
You
Go
know,
ahead.
you're saying this, but here's the thing, and I've been talking about forgiveness with the congregation, and one of the things I've said to the congregation is this: there are people who have unforgiveness for people who have passed
Passed
away,
away. Mm-hmm.
and you're carrying that, and
Mm-hmm.
you're holding that,
Mm-hmm.
and you're actually hurting yourself.
Yourself, because the person gone, they and they ain't coming
They
to
can't
apologize.
sleep no better
Look,
than they're
look,
sleeping
okay, they
right now.
sleeping. Yeah, and then the biggest thing is they can't apologize. So you have to
Right.
get your healing through God. That's me.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
to forgive and then allow that healing to come through
Yes,
God.
yes, and this is what sometimes people can't. So we kind of started on this because we were talking about the vengeance,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not. It's not about keeping score, and it's not
Exactly.
about fairness.
Yes.
It's about one of the things is you're not fair to yourself when
Mm-hmm.
you don't forgive.
Exactly.
That's what you may not
Yeah.
recognize.
Yeah.
You're holding that. You're not hurting that person.
No.
Sometimes that person is well. When they dead, they sleep. They just
Okay.
sleep. But
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes your abuser, they are alive, but they sleeping 7 or 8
Child,
hours a night.
they ain't even
They ain't
think
thinking
about
about
you.
you.
They ain't even got you on their
And
mind.
then there you are
Eating
getting
up.
2 and 3 hours of sleep, maybe 4.
High blood pressure, heart attack. All of this stuff comes from stress now.
Yes.
Holding stuff in a lot of time.
Right.
Man, let me tell you something. The one thing I thank God for,
Uh-huh.
forgiveness is something that I do very well.
Yes.
I ask God for that. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
because I've been through so much trauma in my life
Mm-hmm.
from birth,
Yes.
rejection because my father rejected me. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But just all of that stuff, I said, God, teach me how to forgive people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. So people know right now. It's people around me that did me such dirt and
Mm-hmm.
such pain,
Mm-hmm.
and I embrace them and I love on them and people around me go, girl, how can you talk to them? I wouldn't even talk to them. They couldn't have no. And I love them
Yeah.
because I want to walk in agape.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want to play with just phileo, storge, eros. I don't want to just operate there. I want all of those combined with agape, which will give me the ability to forgive and love beyond what a person has done.
And this is where the freedom comes when we can love like he did. And an apology is not needed.
Nope,
It's nice, but not
but
necessary.
not necessary.
It is actually not necessary. Sometimes people think that you got to do that, but it's not necessary. For certain situations, you need to rebuke the person. That person should apologize, and you can go on in a relationship and work together and overcome things. There
Yeah.
are other times when you just need to forgive.
Give and just keep it moving.
There's a couple of scenarios in the scriptures where Jesus himself he forgave while they were doing it. He released them from it. They forgive him.
Exactly.
They don't know what they do.
Exactly.
Forgive them while they were crucifying him. That's what he did.
Amen.
And it's just wonderful that we can walk in that.
Yes. Yes.
Stephen, same thing.
Yes.
While they bit the man, they didn't just talk about him. They put their mouth on him and gnashed on him with their
Okay.
teeth
Yeah.
and took up stones and stoned him
Stoned
to
him.
death. And he said, "Lay not this sin to their charge."
Yes. What more can you do? Look.
That's so.
That's it right there.
But when you can do that,
Yes.
it's freeing
Yes,
for
it
your
is.
own soul.
It is. It
And
is.
so I just wanted to put that in
Yeah.
to say that that's one of the ways that you can actually come to a place of healing for your mind
Yes.
after abuse, forgiveness,
Forgiveness.
so that you can move on.
Just.
You're not
That's
doing
it.
them a
For
favor.
them.
It's not about them. You're not doing them a favor. They don't even have to know. There may be a situation where you couldn't even tell them that you forgive
Exactly.
them. But you need to let it
But
go
you gotta let
out
it
of
go.
your heart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
And one more thing.
Okay.
Jesus did say, and I'm gonna let you speak and help us close, but Jesus did say, love your enemies.
Oh.
And your
Oh yeah.
enemy can come in a different form. It can come in the form of a friend. It can come in the form of a spouse. Uh, it makes no difference. Makes no never mind. Love your enemies.
Love them.
Your abuser. Um, Not saying that you have to allow them to continue to abuse
Use
you.
you. Mm-hmm.
That's not what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to hate them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And a lot of people, that's a part of the pain
Hmm.
that inside of them, and that's what causes them to go into mental illness because they can't find it within themselves to love that person in spite. I mean, the word says to love them
Hmm.
in spite of whatever, you know,
Hmm.
and then it's on them whether they correct whatever their behaviors are and get it right. But for us, we for me, forgiveness is huge and love is huge. I want to
Yes.
walk. I want to be able. So even my ex-husband, before he died,
Hmm.
he would call me. I mean, he would call me all the time. Cassandra, I love you. Just know that I always loved you. And I would. He would always say, "Tell me, just tell me that you love me."
Hmm.
And only once was I able to tell him that, but I just needed to tell him it once.
Uh-huh,
I
uh-huh.
didn't need to tell him anymore.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But I was able to get past that, even though what he did caused me lifelong what I'm going through now
I see.
damage.
I see. I see.
Hmm.
But God is good.
God is great.
And He is a healer, and
Yes.
He's put some things here
Yes.
for us,
Yep.
for our
Absolutely.
help, for our healing.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's not just a plant or a flower or some type of extract from something that He's already put
Hmm.
here for our
Hmm.
medicine, for
Hmm.
our
Hmm.
healing,
Hmm.
because actually that's where our medicine comes from. It
Absolutely.
actually comes from what He's
He's
already
already
put here.
placed. Hmm.
But there's another thing He put here. He's put us here,
Hmm.
and sometimes people don't recognize that they're looking for God to speak from heaven, but He does actually have some
People,
mouthpieces
yeah,
here
yeah,
that can offer therapy,
absolutely,
and then the ones that He has placed to preach the gospel,
absolutely.
the hearing of the word
Hmm.
is a great
It's a
benefit.
benefit.
So give us some remarks in summary
Yeah,
of this conversation.
yeah. What I would love for people to take away from this, if nothing else, that there is help.
Hmm.
If you want the help, there are strategies. If you're in abuse, there are strategies to get out of that situation.
Hmm.
Please, there are so many abuse lines. Whatever kind of abuse you're going through,
Hmm.
there is a line for it nowadays.
Yes.
And so reach out for help. Even if it's just to talk through it with somebody, it's important. So, go ahead.
Do you have a number?
The
Like you said, there's probably multiple
Oh,
numbers,
it's yeah.
but is there a catch number that could help people that's needing to escape? You spoke of sex
Oh
trafficking, you
yeah,
spoke
yeah.
of
Domestic
domestic
violence.
abuse,
Yeah,
violence, and all.
just do just that.
Yes.
Just Google. Look, Google is everything. Or
Okay. Uh huh.
Google domestic violence hotline, sexual abuse, human trafficking. Mental health. Anything that you want, you can Google it right now and get those numbers to find out where you can go to get help for your specific need.
Yes.
And there's something out there for everything. And then once you could connect to that, pastor, if you can go to your pastor, a lot of people can't reach their pastors
Yeah.
nowadays,
Yes.
especially these mega churches. They can't even get you boy. Boy,
They might lose the
boy,
anointing if you touch them, right?
that's what I'm saying. Boy, you don't even want. So it's important to
And so my
mhm,
number, my
yes.
number
Mhm.
is 423
Mhm.
316 8011. I am accessible.
That's awesome.
I'm accessible.
That's awesome.
So
That's
thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope you've taken something from this conversation. It's a serious conversation. And if you are dealing with something and you don't want to talk about it, you might not talk with any and everybody about it,
Mhm.
but you need to find that right person that you can begin to open up to and begin to get the proper help
Absolutely.
that you need. There is help for you and there is hope
Absolutely.
for you. You can overcome, and God is willing and able to help you, and we are willing to help as well. But some help, we're going to need the help of the Lord,
Absolutely.
and He's the great deliverer.
Mhm.
And so we would like for you to share this podcast with others. There are some that you may know that you haven't talked about the taboo, but they need to hear this message or need to hear this podcast. And so we would like for you to like, share, and subscribe to the Growing in Grace podcast. And remember that if you do have topics that you would like for us to discuss, you can reach out to me at 423-316-8011. I want you to come back next week for the next Growing in Grace podcast. Until next time, God bless you and may heaven smile upon you. Come on back.